Hello viewers and welcome to another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today we've another video sent in by Omega Sector Gaming, a gaming club based primarily around Seattle, Washington, a city located within the Pacific Northwest region of the United States. On the left we see a proxied version of our upcoming Wrath of the Crusaders Warpack Warlord. It is Chaplain Mavros, played by Thomas Wyatt Mellor. Looks like our Space Marine starts off the game holding our initiative token, and at the opposite end of the table resides our most recently released Tyranid faction warlord. It is Subject Ω-X62113, played by Ryan Murrell. Looks like our first deploy action is going to be our Space Marine throwing out a copy of the 2-cost support Holy Sepulchre, and when you have a Space Marine unit in play, when it ends up entering your discard pile, you can exhaust that support in response in order to bounce that unit back to your hand. Note, planet number 1 is going to be Karnath, the wildcard planet, which allows you to trigger the battle ability of any other in-play planet sitting upon the tabletop, and, perhaps more importantly, that has a blue technology icon associated with it, and that means that any Space Marine unit sitting at that planet or any other blue planet is going to be an eligible target for Chaplain Mavros' action, where, limit twice per phase, you can deal 1 point of damage to any of your Space Marine units, including Mavros himself, in order to give it a +1 attack value bonus, which persists until the end of the phase. And that is an additive effect, so therefore Mavros, as a 2/7 warlord, can, potentially by himself, be swinging for 4 until the end of the phase at a blue planet. But then again, so can any other Space Marine. Subject Omega to the right is a 2/6 Gene Stealer trait warlord, and his gimmick is all about infestation. So note, planet number 4, we've got a copy of Toxic Venomthrope, 2-cost, 2-command icon 0/2. Whenever you happen to win a command struggle, you can infest that planet, and that means that Subject Omega is going to be able to play any Gene Stealer trait cards from hand to an infested planet as if they have the ambush keyword. But note, planet number 1 looks like Chaplain Mavros is actually investing relatively heavily in that planet indeed. It's going to be a copy of the 2-cost Righteous Initiate, 1 command icon, 1 attack, soldier trait, 2 hit points. It's got the Unstoppable specialization where the first time it takes a point of damage each round, you prevent that damage, and until the end of the phase, it gets a semi-persistent +2 attack value bonus, which can endure for multiple attacks. Further, it's got a copy of the Black Templar's Army Unit specific attachment, the 2-cost, 2-shield icon, the Black Sword. It's unique, it's a relic, and whenever one of our Tyranid units declares the Righteous Initiate as a defender, that attachment is going to deal it 2 points of damage prior to it actually resolving its attack. So therefore, Subject Omega would probably be making a rather poor life choice to be showing up at planet number 1. But planet number 3, we've got a copy of Rogue Trader, 1 cost, 0 attack, 1 hit point, 1 command icon, +1 resource bonus. And planet number 2, we've got a Tyranid Warrior, so 3 cost, 2 command icons, and it is a 2/4, but no abilities whatsoever. Note that our Tyranid player has decided to go with the Stalking Lictor, and now what exactly are we going to see? Our Tyranid shows up at planet 3 with Subject Omega, and the Stalking Lictor arrives at 5. Looks like Mavros ends up at planet number 1, so planet number 1, I guess Mavros need not have shown up at all. It's going to be a card and a resource to the left for Mavros. Planet number 2 is going to be a couple of cards for a Tyranid. Planet number 3 is going to be a couple of resources for Subject Omega. Planet number 4 is going to be a couple of resources for Subject Omega, and it's going to end up being infested. Planet number 5 is going to be a card and a resource for Subject Omega, so our Tyranid is definitely decimating the economy of our Space Marine. So, planet number 1, I am pretty sure that Mavros could have gone elsewhere just because our Righteous Initiate pretty much has that on lockdown. Note that Thomas is going to be able to win that entirely uncontested. It's not as if there are really any other Tyranid ambush cards apart from just Subject Omega's ability, and because planet number 1 was indeed Karnath, it allows any planet ability to be triggered, and therefore it looks like our Space Marine went with Planum to shift the Righteous Initiate from planet number 1 to planet number 2. Looks looks like Subject Omega takes a swing. That's going to be a dead copy of Rogue Trader, and that is going to be +1 resource to the right for Subject Omega, -1 resource to the left for our Space Marine, if he indeed had any resources left. I think we easily could have seen Planum shift that Righteous Initiate to the same planet as Subject Omega was sitting, because Subject Omega would have had to first take an attack of 1 had he decided to kill that Rogue Trader, and then he'd have either had to retreat, he'd have given up that planetary ability, or if he'd have attacked the Righteous Initiate, it would have prevented 1 damage, it would have activated its ability to swing in return for 3, which could have been further augmented by a Crushing Blow, and the Black Sword would have dealt out a large amount of damage to our Gene Stealer there. So, wasn't exactly the most ideal Warlord committance in the world, but regardless, the Righteous Initiate is going to be well set up to potentially win another blue technology icon planet, and if we win planet number 1 and 4, from Mavros' perspective, that could well be this game. Planet number 1 is going to be automatically infested thanks to a copy of Scything Hormagaunts, 2 cost, 1 command icon, 2 attack, 2 hit points, and a copy of Predation is going to move that to planet number 2, but I guess you need not have kind of revealed that information now. For instance, if Mavros shows up to planet number 2 to win a battle or something, then you're going to basically lose the effect of Predation, because if a non-Tyranid wins a battle, that's going to clear away that planet, and it just seems like that's a bit of a shame to give your opponent the opportunity to kind of counter a card effect before you actually benefit from it. But that does, I mean, if you were going to ambush units in, you may as well just wait until you see where the enemy Warlord is regardless. Like if Mavros would have shown up at 4, you could have infested that planet thanks to Predation, moving the infestation from 3 to 4, and then you could have, I don't know, Yumgarl Gene Stealer or Gene Stealer Prowler harassed Mavros. But planet number 1, we've got a copy of Blood Angels Veterans. It's going to be a 3-cost, 3/3 unit with 1 command icon, and what's fantastic about that unit is its reaction where the first time, well, whenever it happens to be dealt damage, so long as it's ready, you can prevent the first point of that damage. It's sitting at a blue planet. It's a Space Marine. Mavros can use his action, limit twice per phase, up to twice consecutively during the deploy phase to ping your Blood Angels Veterans. It doesn't take any damage, and that counts as a deploy action. Then your opponent has to do something, and then you can ping your Blood Angels Veterans again. So that is just a fantastic effect here. Note, planet number 1, our Tyranid is deploying relatively heavily indeed. That's going to be a copy of the Volatile Pyrovore, so that's going to be a 3-cost, 3/3 with a command icon, and whenever it happens to be destroyed by an attack, you can deal 3 points of damage to its assailant, or its murderer. But we're going to decide where exactly we want to go during command. Note that our Tyranid currently has initiative. The only way he's going to be able to maintain that is if he shows up at planet number 1, but he could take a whole hell of a lot of damage. If he does, it looks like he does have the audacity to arrive at that planet, and that means the Righteous Initiate, thanks to Mavros, could potentially swing for a just monumental 5, being pinged twice, 1 plus the 2 from Unstoppable, plus 2 from Mavros. But regardless, that is going to be a total of 4 command icons at planet number 1 for our Tyranid. That's going to be a couple of cards for our Tyranid. Planet number 3, that is going to be a couple of resources for our Tyranid, plus his choice of a card or a resource, because the Venom Thrope is sitting at an already infested planet. Note, planet number 5 is going to be a card and a resource to the right for Subject Omega, thanks to the Stalking Lictor. We see a Gene Stealer being ambushed into play thanks to Subject Omega's ability, which allows you to ambush Gene Stealer cards from your hand. That's going to be an Invasive Gene Stealer, 3-cost, 1 command icon, 2/3, but when it enters play, you can pick an enemy unit to get a -1 HP debuff, and then the Gene Stealer itself gets a +1 HP bonus. Looks like we see a second copy, and that is going to be a double Invasive Gene Stealer play, dropping the Righteous Initiate's HP down to 0, so that means Unstoppable does not trigger, and furthermore, the Black Sword does not trigger. Looks like Thomas indeed reminds to use that rather seldom played Holy Sepulchre to at least return that Black Templar's faction, or Black Templar's trait, army unit to his hand, and now it's going to be our Gene Stealer with initiative. Looks like we see another copy of Predation, shifting the infestation to planet number 4. I can't really tell what exactly the point of that is, unless he drew a Gene Stealer and he wants to set himself up to potentially win command at some later date, but really apart from the Yumgarl Gene Stealer and an Invasive Gene Stealer, nothing that we've really seen thus far. has command icons associated with it. So interesting play. I guess I'd have just waited for the deploy phase, but it's all good. So our Tyranid is going to take a swing with the Volatile Pyrovore directly to the Blood Angels veteran, and that means it's going to end up shaving off 1 point of damage. It's going to potentially be able to attack. All right, that is going to be Vow of Honor, so it's going to be whenever a Space Marine unit takes damage as a response, you can play that for 1, and then it's going to swing for an incredible 3. So Mavros could have, I guess Mavros could have used his ability to augment the Blood Angels veterans prior to it being exhausted to attack. So 3 base plus 3 from Vow of Honor plus 2 from Chaplain Mavros results in a swing of 8. Looks like our Gene Stealer did not have his signature attachment, and that is going to be a bloodied subject to Ω-X62113. So that was relatively quick. Looks like that copy of Blood Angels Veterans is going to end up being killed off by an invasive Gene Stealer, and Mavros is going to use his combat turn in order to retreat, as opposed to taking, 3 different attacks of 2 from our Tyranid players. That is going to be a Planet 1 by our Tyranid. Eloith is going to be activated, so that's going to be our Tyranid's opportunity to take a look at the top 3 cards of his deck and add any one of those cards to his hand, and now it's going to be all the more difficult for Mavros to try to win this game through planets, but Subject Omega is, I believe, now at 2-5 on his bloodied side at best, and he's really not going to be able to do much against Mavros, who can output so much damage. I mean, Drop Pod Assault is a thing, Crushing Blow is a thing, and of course Indomitable is always going to be an option, and Mavros at any blue planet, note that there are currently 2 on the tabletop, he's going to be able to potentially augment his attack up to 4 base. Like if Omega arrives at, let's say, planet number 4, and Mavros arrives at planet number 4, Mavros is going to be able to augment himself, swing for 4. He could even proc a Vow of Honor on himself, I believe, and then just take a swing with or without Crushing Blow, and then that would immediately be the Warlord death of Subject Omega. So Subject Omega just has that 1 blue tech icon, so therefore he's going to have to pick up planets 3 and 4 if he wants to win through planets, or otherwise he's going to have to try and destroy the monumentally frustrating and resilient, hardy, formidable Space Marine Warlord Chaplain Mavros. There's the Ancient Crozius Arcanum is going to be an option. Iron Halo might be an option just to make Chaplain Mavros all but unkillable, even the Cenobite Servitor. So any number of different Indomitable-esque type of effects, all sorts of healing effects, all sorts of damage prevention effects, and HP boosting effects are all within the repertoire of Chaplain Mavros. So, awesome card. I think he's going to take the meta by storm, and now we've got a second copy of Toxic Venomthrope currently residing at planet number 4, and that's kind of an interesting location for it, because that wouldn't be the worst place in the world for Chaplain Mavros to arrive, maybe thinking that if our Gene Stealer goes to planet number 1 or something along those lines and ends up with his HQ being blasted, but note that planet number 5 is going to be Taurus, that planet which, if you control fewer units, which obviously, look at Chaplain Mavros, he controls fewer units, then that will give you your choice of 3 cards or 3 resources, and in the meantime, looks like we've got a copy of the 1-cost Neophyte Apprentice at that planet, so it's another Black Templar's trait army unit. It's a 1/1 with a command icon, and as a forced reaction, whenever it deals damage to an enemy unit through an attack, you are forced to take a look at the top 6 cards of your deck and then basically sacrifice it, regardless whether or not you find a unit. But if you find a 4 or lower cost Black Templar's trait army unit, you can put that into play, and at present there are none that qualify, but, someday that could be absolutely superb. For the moment, Neophyte Apprentice not my favorite card, because it could attack and then it could just throw its life away. But Righteous Initiate sitting at planet number 3 opposite a Tyranid Warrior, we've got a copy of Virulent Spore Sacs at 1, which for the cost of 2 has a command icon. It's a 0/1 as a combat action. You can destroy it, deal 1 point of damage to all enemy units, and infest that same planet. And then there's also a Ripper Swarm at 1, which is a 0-cost 1/1 with a command icon, and it's the limited keyword. But looks like Subject Omega arrives at planet number 2 with a giant stack of units. Mavros shows up to planet number 4, and let's see here. Planet number 1 is going to be a couple of resources to the right for Subject Omega. Planet 2 is going to be a couple of resources to the right for Subject Omega. Toxic Venom Misanthrope is a thing, so that means it's going to be an additional card or an additional resource. Planet 3 is going to be a card and a resource to the right for our Tyranid. Planet number 4 is going to be a card and a resource for poor Chaplain Mavros, and then planet number 5, the Stalking Lictor, has arrived to shut off that Neophyte Apprentice, and therefore that's going to be a card and a resource to the right for Subject Omega, which is just absolutely dominating in regard to command. So planet number 1 is going to be captured, no contest whatsoever, by our Tyranid. That's going to be Ossus 4, resulting in +1 resource for Omega, -1 resource for Mavros. And it looks like, despite the bloodied Warlord, Mavros is just getting his ass kicked all across the Traxxas sector, but of course this could fall apart at any moment if Subject Omega ends up being just destroyed, lost via Warlord death. But Subject Omega wins the battle, go figure it. Farron, that's going to rout an enemy unit. That's going to be the Righteous Initiate, banished to the hellish HQ of the Space Marine there, the Space Monastery. Chaplain Mavros takes a swing of 2. That's going to be a dead Toxic Venomthrope. That's going to be Aatrox Prime firing at our Tyranid player's HQ, and that's going to be that Virulent Spore Sacs and Ripper Swarm destroyed, and that is going to be Subject Omega with 1 point of damage, and now it's only 4 damage between our Tyranid and losing this game here. So very interesting indeed. Our new first planet, by the way, is going to be Farron, that route a target unit planet. Currently, our Tyranid just has a blue and a green icon, strong point, and materials, so neither player is too close to winning this game, but it's only 4 hit points until Omega is killed. And, I mean, check it out. We've seen each and every planet. Is Iridial going to be an option? No, of course not. It's not on the tabletop. It's removed from play. Therefore, it is declared the Crusade eligible, and let us see. I guess really all our Tyranid can do is hope to high hell. He's got a large number of shield cards, because if he doesn't have initiative, I mean, if he has initiative during battles, he's going to have to use his first combat turn in order to retreat, and if he does not have initiative, then he is just going to have to be pulverized by the, I guess, ancient Crozius Arcanum swung by Chaplain Mavros. And let me tell you, I can speak from experience, Mavros is, he's definitely packing, but let's see. Virulent Spore Sacs arrive, 2 copies actually, at planet number 3. They're going to be able to detonate, infest that planet, deal damage to enemy units. At planet number 2, we've got we have 1 of 3 copies of the signature army unit, Reclusium Templars, played by Chaplain Mavros. It's for the cost of 3, a 1 command icon, 2/3. It's got the Unstoppable specialization where, no matter what, whenever it takes, the first point of damage each round, you always prevent it. That seems to be the thing with Unstoppable, but then its special little twist on it is that you ready that unit. So if you've got initiative, you attack, then, it takes an attack in return, and then you ready it. And it's also picked up a copy of the Black Sword, so again, if it's declared as Defender, prior to the attacker resolving its attack, it takes 2 points of damage, and that could kill a huge number of Gene Stealers, or really any kind of Tyranid unit, but a hell of a thing is assembling itself Voltron style at planet number 2. That's going to be a Yumgarl Gene Stealer, which is not ambushed into play because Subject Omega is bloodied, but for the cost of 5, it's going to be a 2 command icon, 4/4. Whenever a Warlord is present, it's going to be able to attack with a +2 value bonus. Whenever a Synapse unit, that Stalking Lictor, is present, it's going to get an additional +2 HP until the Synapse unit is maybe killed, and it's also got a copy of Regeneration, probably one of the most powerful Tyranid cards. For the cost of 1, it's an attachment which grants its attached unit +2 HP, and then as an action you can exhaust that attachment to remove 2 points of damage from that same unit. So the Gene Stealer is currently a 6 HP unit. It's going to be able to heal itself for 2. If a Synapse unit shows up, it's going to have 8 HP, and since we're not playing as Captain Cato Sicarius here, unfortunately there's no the Fury of Sicarius as an option, so things are getting a little bit difficult to see down there at our last planet, number 4, but remember, that's going to be a Righteous Initiate and a Neophyte Apprentice. So Subject Omega has arrived at Planet 4. Note that Subject Omega has initiative, so he's going to be able to retreat. But Planet number 1, that is going to be a couple of resources to the right for our Tyranid. Planet 2 is going to be a card and a resource for our Tyranid to the right. Planet 3 is going to be a card and a resource for our Tyranid to the right. And Planet number 4 is going to be a card and a resource for Chaplain Mavros, and it's looking like he's almost assuredly going to be able to trigger Taurus to add a few cards to his hand, or, failing that, a few resources. But Planet number 1, that's going going to allow for the routing of a unit, and it's going to be the Neophyte Apprentice. That's kind of an unusual pick. I believe I'd have probably gone with the Reclusium Templar just because it's going to be able to attack for quite a lot, but it doesn't really matter too much. I believe that's going to be a planet-type icon of each kind in our Tyranid player's victory display, so man, that about sucks. Material, technology, and strong point respectively, but you're not really any closer to winning the game than is Thomas on the left playing as Mavros, but let us see how the remainder of this match ends up being resolved. Gee, to no one's surprise, Subject Omega retreats from that planet as opposed to allowing himself to be destroyed, and note that 2 out of the 3 remaining planets do have those blue technology type icons, so that means they are eligible to be targeting Space Marine units with Mavros' reaction, and of course, Subject Omega's ability we haven't really had to contend with for the vast majority of this game. But let us see what is going to occur. We go through another HQ phase, and as always, dear viewers, you know that HQ phase is associated with one thing. Everybody readies their cards, and here's another thing that I forgot. Well, I didn't forget. Anyways, point being, the initiative token changes hands. Each player draws a couple of cards. Each player gains 4 resources. And now let's see what exactly is happening. Interestingly, it looks as though the Yumgarl Gene Stealer is kind of floating between planets. There we go. And that's going to be the initiative token bouncing back to Mavros. And keep in mind, whenever he has initiative, that's going to be a sterling opportunity for him to potentially get in a devastating attack and kill off our Gene Stealer. So I was going to say you may as well try and reinforce each and every planet, but of course you're going to have, you're going to have to maintain initiative, and Warlords always steal initiative. But planet number 2, that's going to be one of our newest Space Marine faction cards. That's going to be a Sword Brethren Dreadnought, so a cost of 7, 3 command icons, and it's a 5/6, and its unstoppable specialization is going to be absolutely ridiculous. It's whenever it takes damage, you prevent the first point of damage, and you can activate the battle ability of that planet, which is just absolutely nuts. So let's see here. On the Tyranid side of the table, we've got a copy of the Termagant Horde, and if memory serves, that's going to be a 1 command icon, 1/3, at least I think it has a command icon, and at the beginning of each and every combat round, you put a 1/1 creature trait Termagant token into play. I've been commentating too many Dark Eldar games, but let us see how things are going to continue to be resolved. We've got another copy of Termagant Horde sitting at Aatrox Prime, and that's a damn shame because Aatrox Prime can target adjacent planets for bombardment or the enemy HQ, but it's not exactly an eligible target for itself. And let's see here, that's going to be a copy of Ruined Passages being played by our Tyranids. That's going to be the signature support of Subject Omega, and I guess getting so much economy has definitely paid off, and would you look at that HQ, that is just absurd. But Ruined Passages, you exhaust it, you sacrifice it, and you ready all Gene Stealer trait units at a target planet you control. So let us see how things are going to resolve. Planet number 1, we've got a copy of Ripper Swarm, and really what Mavros is going to want to do is try to predict his enemy's movement as best as possible, because if he can land a blow like at Planet 1 or Planet 2, if he's managing to corner Subject Omega, he could he could boost his attack value up to 4, and then he could swing, and maybe our Tyranid throws out a 3 shield value card, and then 3 copies of Crushing Blow result in a dead Subject Omega, but that's pretty unlikely just considering how poor the economy of our Space Marine has been over the course of this match. No offense, Thomas, but Subject Omega has been doing ever so slightly better in regard to income. But during the command phase, both of our players send their Warlords to planet number 3, and that is going to be interesting because that means Mavros did manage to hunt down Subject Omega, albeit unfortunately at a planet that does not have a blue technology icon. So planet number 1 is going to be a card and a resource to the right. Planet 2 is going to be a card and a resource to the right, thanks in part to the Stalking Lictor, and I do believe I see command icon blips on those Termagant sentries. And planet number 3 is going to be a card and a resource to the left for Chaplain Mavros, because he's got that Righteous Initiate sitting there ready, and 1 command icon definitely beats 0. But, okay, so here's what's happening. Looks like Mavros is going to ping the Sword Brethren Dreadnought at planet number 2. So as an action, he deals it a point of damage. That's going to be the Unstoppable specialization triggering, and that means that Aatrox Prime is going to be able to activate, and that's going to be a single point of damage dealt from Aatrox to each and every Tyranid sitting at that same planet, and that is a giant mitt of Tyranids that Ryan is holding there, and let's see what exactly dies, what ends up surviving. There's got to be some 1 HP units in there somewhere, and I think that, you know, akin to Jaws, they may as well invest in a bigger boat or table during the next video. So it looks like he's maybe sifting through the pile in order to figure out what he wants to either save or what he wants to keep in play, or regardless, it's just an absolute mess, and it's looking like he's trying to figure out what he wants to shield, but most important of all, of course, that's going to be a point of damage being dealt to Subject Omega, which he does definitely have to shield against, and it's looking like there's going to be a large volume of shield cards entering the discard pile of our Tyranid here. So that was a Dark Cunning, it was several other cards, but just suffice it to say that Aatrox Prime is going to indeed deal a point of damage to each and every unit at that planet that we did not see a shield discarded for. Looks like we see a copy of Gene Implantation discarded as a shield. That is a hell of a thing to throw away if you've got any other options. That's going to be the signature event of Subject Ω-X62113. It's probably one of my favorite cards in the game, frankly. And I suppose I'll talk about it in just a moment. We see Ruined Passages exhausted and, exhausted and sacrificed, and that is going to ready each and every Gene Stealer at that planet. So what's interesting about this is it's going to be the invasive Gene Stealers being readied, but it's really only those 2 units that are going to derive any benefit whatsoever from that. Like, note that the Volatile Pyrovore and a few other things are going to be remaining exhausted, but Subject Omega does not have initiative, and therefore it's going to be up to our Space Marine to take a swing first, but he's only going to be able to swing at most for 2, and if our Tyranid shields that, then that's going to disallow him any opportunity to use Crushing Blow, but it looks like our Space Marine does have a well, he doesn't necessarily have a Drop Pod Assault in hand, although I would hope he perhaps does by this point of the game, but he does have 2 resources with which to fund a Drop Pod Assault, so let's see what happens. It's going to be Chaplain Mavros with the ability to attack before anything occurs with Subject Ω-X. What's interesting about this match is that I guess we've still got a battle that has yet to occur at planet number 1. So I guess there's been so much activity going on at planet number 3. I've been thoroughly distracted from our, kind of our order of operations. We have to have a battle at planet 1. So I guess just thinking about things, because there's not a Warlord present at that planet, that's going to be the Yumgarl Gene Stealer as a modified 4/6. It's not going to get a benefit from a Warlord or Synapse unit being present, despite its being the most friendly, the most expensive of the colloquially referred to as Warlord friend units. And let's see what happens. That's going to be the Reclusium Templar with initiative taking a swing of 2, but directed at what? Kind of the cool thing about this is they've got that unstoppable specialization, which means they're going to ready after they attack. Okay, that's going to be a dead Ripper Swarm, and what's crappy about Unstoppable is it's not volitional, like you have to trigger it no matter what, so if our Tyranid had initiative, you could have attacked a ready copy of Reclusium Templar, its Unstoppable would have triggered, and it would not have actually benefited from being able to ready itself. But what is going to be attacking it? The Yumgarl Gene Stealer swings for 4, and a copy of Spore Burst is going to be discarded to block the Black Sword's damage. So the Reclusium Templar survives thanks to Indomitable, and it's going to ready because of Unstoppable, and let's see, I guess we see Vow of Honor being used, and I guess I'm checking my notes here. I could have sworn that was whenever the Space Marine unit is damaged by an attack, or whenever it incurs damage, as opposed to when it's attacking. So I guess, well, okay, here's what you can do is, yeah, Chaplain Mavros uses his ability, deals a point of damage to the Reclusium Templar, or maybe he even set it up so it's 2 points of damage, but let's see. So the Gene Stealer took, it has 2 points of damage currently, so let's say the Reclusium Templar was potentially, well, it was no matter what modified by Vow of Honor up to 5 attack, plus if Mavros used something, it could be at 6 or 7, and then it looks like there's also going to be a copy of Crushing Blow, so I've kind of lost track of how much damage the Reclusium Templar is going to be able to deal out there, but Crushing Blow, Vow of Honor, and or Chaplain Mavros' ability all have combined together to make quite the deleterious unit. Looks like the Tyranid Warrior takes a swing, and that is going to be blocked by the discard of the signature attachment, the Ancient Crozius Arcanum, and so that's going to be 2 points of damage decreased down to 0, and note that the Tyranid Warrior has taken damage from the Black Sword going out there, so I'll definitely have to check after this video if Vow of Honor is like in response to taking damage or being attacked, but let's just say it was in response to Chaplain Mavros dealing out damage, and because the Yumgarl Gene Stealer, like, let's say we used Chaplain Mavros' ability to damage the Reclusium Templar, prevented that damage, then we used the ability again to deal it damage, and we used Vow of Honor, and then the Reclusium Templar used Indomitable to block off the attack of the Gene Stealer there. So interestingly, looks like we've got something going on. And okay, looks like there's a slight bit of a takesy-backsies. So the Yumgarl Gene Stealer takes a swing, and I guess it ends up being killed. I happen to miss whether or not regeneration was used. I would at least hope it was, and I apologize, my viewers, for getting a little confused here, but here's how this works. We see that the Tyranid Warrior takes a swing at the Reclusium Templar. It does manage to kill it. Looks like the discard of a gene implantation results in the Tyranid Warrior not being killed prior to its ability to deal damage. The Reclusium Templar hits the discard pile of our Space Marine, and then it's bounced back to the hand of Chaplain Mavros. That's going to be Planum added to the victory display of Subject Omega, and now he's got 2 blue and 2 green icons, and that means that if Subject Omega wins at Aatrox Prime, then that could, I believe that could be the game going to him, because he's got Eloith and he's got Planum, and yeah, if he captures Aatrox Prime, that's going to be the game. But looks like we've got a copy of Virulent Spore Sacs being detonated at, I guess that was planet number 3. That's going to be a point of damage to the Neophyte Apprentice, which is going to activate it to be able to attack for 3, so I'm not sure that was necessarily the best choice by our Tyranid yet, and Subject Omega is not going to be able to retreat yet at this moment. Note that Chaplain Mavros has a point of damage, that Neophyte Apprentice was going to be killed, and I guess, yeah, so let's see what happens here. That is going to be 3 points of damage possibly being dealt to Subject Omega if our Tyranid is, oh god, he's used up like all of his shield cards, so Subject Omega took 3 points of damage, he's just at 1 hit point remaining, and then we end up seeing the combat turn of Omega used to retreat. Chaplain Mavros retreats, and then the invasive Gene Stealers and all whatever number of other units end up killing off that Righteous Initiate. Our Tyranid is not going to be able to trigger... Or sorry, our Tyranid is not going to be able to trigger Aatrox Prime, or sorry, it's not going to be able to trigger Taurus. What I was trying to say is I'm now concerned about Aatrox Prime because it deals 1 point of damage, and Subject Omega is sitting at just 1 HP left. So we come to another HQ phase. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. Subject Omega now has the initiative token. Planet number 1 is going to be Aatrox Prime. We've got that Sword Brethren Dreadnought sitting at that planet. It's still got 5 hit points remaining. It's going to be able to attack for 5, and we see a Ripper Swarm at that same planet. So those Ripper Swarms, again, it's a limited keyword card. And now what exactly are we going to see done by Subject Omega? He's going to have to try to win planet number 1, although he's dropped off a giant train of units at planet number 2, and if he goes to planet number 1 himself, then he's going to risk being killed, and we'd better hope for our Tyranid player's sake that he's got at least a couple shield cards in hand, because if he sends Subject Omega to planet number 2, if he ends up losing at planet number 1, that's going to be the Dreadnought firing Aatrox Prime at 2, potentially killing Subject Omega, and then if our Space Marine wins, that's going to be Aatrox Prime firing again, potentially killing Subject Omega. But let's see here. I guess we could also see something else. We could see this occur during the deploy phase, where Chaplain Mavros is going to activate the battle ability, he's going to use his action. Yes, it looks like that is the case, is Chaplain. There we go. So that's going to be the good game right there. Chaplain Mavros, during the deploy phase, uses his action to ping the Sword Brethren Dreadnought at a blue technology icon planet, unstoppable specialization processes, and the 3 cards remaining in Subject Omega's hand were not shield cards. Therefore, Subject Omega takes a point of damage as Aatrox Prime fires into his HQ. A rather unconventionally ending match there, but regardless, that was a hell of a thing. Subject Omega is blown apart at the very last moment, and it looks like victory was possibly stolen out from under our Tyranids. So I'd have been very curious to see how 2 copies of the Termagant Hordes and a Genestealer Prowler and whatever else our Tyranid would have thrown into play could have potentially fared to maybe win at planet number 1, but that was a hell of a game. A tremendous thank you to the fellows at Omega Sector Gaming for sending this in. They're the closest thing I have to a local meta, being about a 2-hour drive away from my location in Ellensburg to their location around the Seattle-Tacoma area. So thank you to them. Another well played to both Thomas and Ryan, and this was just a hell of a game. So viewers, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already, and as ever, I always encourage you to share these videos, because the more individuals there are that end up exposed to Conquest LCG, the more people may give the game a try, join our community, and of course, together we send an increasingly great message to Fantasy Flight Games, telling them to continue to develop this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Facebook or on Twitter, and if you ever feel inclined to give back to the Hive Tyrant to help support me and my unending endeavor to continue to grow this community and to entertain everyone, I would be absolutely honored, humbled, and deeply appreciative were you to donate even $1 on a strictly monthly basis to my Patreon. It may not seem like much, but it all does wonders in helping me to recover some of my file hosting and operating expenses, and each and every additional dollar is just going to be reinvested back into this channel to improve my audio quality and my video quality. But if you're a content creator, I definitely encourage you to get in touch so I can try to promote your content in ever attempting to grow this game. And once again, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.